Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Bio Universe. I am Suyanka and today we will learn heredity. In reproduction, we have discussed how some amount of variation is produced even during asexual reproduction. Any difference between individual organisms or group of organisms of any species caused either by genetic differences or by environmental factors is called variation. There are various types of variations like germinal, somatic, or heritable. Germinal or genetic variations are caused either by differences in the number or structures of chromosomes or by differences in genes. Somatic variations may result from several factors such as climate, food supply, environment, and interactions with other organisms. Heritable variation is the result of changes in the arrangement of genes on the chromosomes and changes in the sequence of the bases that constitute DNA. An advantage of sexual reproduction is that the variations accumulated in the gametes of each sex are combined when they fuse to form the zygote. Hence, an offspring produced from the zygote receives and carries the variations of both the parents. On the other hand, in asexual reproduction, there are more differences among the offspring. These are due to small errors in DNA copying. Diversity is created over successive generations. The original organisms give rise to individuals which are similar in body design but have slight variations. Each of them in turn gives rise to offspring in the next generation. The offspring too are slightly different from each other. Some differences are unique, others are inherited from their respective parents. You must have noticed that children resemble their parents and brothers and sisters resemble each other more closely than they resemble other people. This means the traits or characteristics of a species are passed down from one generation to another. The closer the relationship is, the greater is the similarity. This continuity of traits, which is maintained for all species and passed down to succeeding generations, is called heredity. The study of the pattern of transmission of characters from parents to their offspring is called genetics. What do parents give their children that make them resemble the parents? Both father and mother pass on genes inherited from their own parents to their children. Genes are stretches of DNA containing coded information for making proteins. These are found on the chromosomes of the cells. Genes are the units of heredity. The genetic constitution of an individual organism is called its genotype. The sum of the activities of genes and the impact of the environment on them leads to the formation of visible traits called phenotype. Mendel, an Austrian monk and botanist, also regarded as the father of genetics, applied his knowledge of science and mathematics to his experiments on pea plants and established the principles of genetics. In 1857, Mendel began a series of experiments on the pea plant to study the pattern of inheritance of various characters. Each of these characters, such as height, seed shape, seed color, etc., had two sharply defined and contrasting traits. For example, tallness and dwarfness, round seed and wrinkled seed, yellow seed and green seed. He crossed a variety of pea plant carrying a particular trait, for example, tallness, such as height, with another variety having a contrasting trait, for example, dwarfness of the same character. These two plants were considered as parental generation. The generation that was produced by crossing these two was called the first filial generation, that is F1 generation. The F1 plants showed only one of the traits, the other trait never appeared. It did not matter whether the trait came from the pollen or the egg. When the F1 plants were crossed among themselves, the generation that was produced was called the second filial generation, that is F2 generation. In F2 generation, 1/4 of the total number of plants were shot. Mendel called the substance responsible for each trait a factor. He explained that each genetic character was represented or controlled by a pair of unit factors or elements. The unit factors became known as alleles. One of the alleles came from one parent and the other from the other parent. The first generation plants of Mendel's experiment were all the tall plants, but the allele representing dwarfness was neither destroyed nor altered. It could not be expressed in the first generation because it was dominated by the allele representing tallness. In other words, the allele for tallness was dominant and the allele for dwarfness was recessive. The dominant trait is usually represented by a capital letter. For example, tallness is represented by T and dwarfness is represented by the corresponding small letter t. If tallness is due to a pair of dominant alleles, it was written as TT. If tallness is due to the only one dominant allele, it would be written as capital T and small t. If both the alleles are recessive, making the organism dwarf, then it is written as both small t. A homozygous condition is one in which both the alleles are of the same nature. For example, capital T or small t and small t. A heterozygous condition is one in which the alleles of the different nature, example capital T and small t. When the tall plants in F1 were crossed among themselves, the F2 generations had 75% tall plants and 25% dwarf plants. Thus, the phenotype ratio was 3:1. This led Mendel to conclude that the alleles representing dwarfness were intact and were neither lost nor altered. Mendel's experiment with one character, that is monohybrid cross, led to the formulation of law of segregation. After studying the inheritance of the contrasting traits of one character, Mendel went on to perform an experiment with two characters, that is dihybrid cross. He crossed a plant having round and yellow seeds with a plant having wrinkled and green seeds. All the F1 plants have round and yellow seeds. When a certain number of F1 plants were crossed among themselves, they give rise to four types of seeds: round and yellow, round and green, wrinkled and yellow, wrinkled and green. Hence, their phenotype ratio was about 9:3:3:1. It indicates that the chances for the pea seeds to be round or wrinkled do not depend on their chances to be yellow or green. Each pair of alleles is independent of the other pairs. This is the principle of independent assortment. Now the question is, how do these traits get expressed? A gene contains the information for making proteins in the cell. The protein synthesized according to this information may be enzymes that catalyze biochemical reactions. Each trait is the outcome of several such biochemical reactions, each of which is controlled by a specific enzyme. If the enzyme is not produced because its gene is absent, that particular reaction will not occur and the trait resulting from its reaction will not appear phenotypically. Thus, each trait is controlled by a gene. In human beings, sex is determined by genetic inheritance. Genes inherited from the parents determine whether an offspring will be a boy or a girl. Genes for all the characters are linearly arranged on chromosome. The chromosomes that carry genes for sexual characters are called sex chromosomes, while those that carry genes for vegetative characters are called autosomes. A sex chromosome that carries the genes for male characters is called Y chromosome, and one which carries the genes for female characters is called X chromosome. We have a total of 46 chromosomes. Half of them come from mother and the rest from the father. Out of which 46 chromosomes, 44 are autosomes and 2 are sex chromosomes. The sex chromosomes are not always a perfect pair. In females, there are 44 autosomes and 2 X chromosomes. In males, there are 44 autosomes, 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome. So the chromosomes in women are 44 plus XX, while the chromosomes in men are 44 plus XY. During gamete formation, the normal diploid chromosomes number is halved. This is called the haploid condition. All the eggs of a female have a 22 plus X chromosomes. A male produces 2 types of sperms. One type bears the 22 plus X composition and other 22 plus Y. During gamete formation, the normal diploid chromosomes number is halved. This is called the haploid condition. All the eggs of a female have 22 plus X chromosome. A male produces 2 types of sperms. One type bears the 22 plus X composition and the other 22 plus Y. If a Y-bearing sperm fertilizes the egg, the zygote has the 44 plus X Y composition and the resulting embryo grows to be a boy. When an X-bearing sperm fertilizes the egg, the resulting zygote has the 44 plus XX composition. This embryo develops into a girl. All the children inherit one X chromosome from the mother. Therefore, X sex is always determined by the other sex chromosome that they inherit from the father.